I stepped off the plane after 11 years away, my carry-on containing more legal documents than clothes. Mom opened the door with tears in her eyes. Her new husband greeted me with his fist. "Welcome home," he slurred, bourbon heavy on his breath. The sting across my face wasn't what hurt most, it was seeing Mom look away, pretending not to notice. They called me cold, calculating, ungrateful. Maybe they were right, but I had something they didn't expect: the original deed papers they thought were lost forever, and a very good lawyer on speed dial. My name is Claire Matheson, and I hadn't set foot in Ohio for 11 years, not since the day I packed everything I owned into 2 suitcases and caught a Greyhound to New York with my military scholarship papers and a promise to myself that I'd never look back. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was reviewing audit reports in my Manhattan office. My grandmother's voice, paper thin but steady. "Your grandfather passed. Claire, the memorial is Saturday. You need to come home." I almost said no. Would have, if she hadn't added, "You need to see this with your own eyes." The flight from LaGuardia to Columbus took 2 hours. 2 hours to undo 11 years of carefully maintained distance. I rented a car at the airport, muscle memory guiding me through the familiar streets of my hometown. Everything looked smaller than I remembered: the houses, the trees, even the high school where I'd graduated valedictorian before enlisting. The house sat on Maple Street, same as always, white siding, black shutters, wraparound porch, but the mailbox read Carlton now, not Matheson. My mother had taken Rick's name when they married 3 years ago. She'd sent me an invitation. I'd sent my regrets and a check. I parked across the street and sat for a moment, studying the place where I'd grown up. The garden my father had planted was gone, replaced with gravel. The basketball hoop he'd installed for my 13th birthday had vanished. Even the old oak tree looked different, half its branches missing, probably deemed too close to Rick's precious garage addition. My phone buzzed, a text from my assistant. "Legal documents uploaded to secure folder as requested. Good luck, Claire." I grabbed my bag and crossed the street. The front door opened before I could knock. Claire. My mother looked older, grayer, smaller. She pulled me into a hug that felt like an obligation. "You're so thin. Don't they feed you in New York?" "Hello, Mom?" She stepped back, her smile faltering. "Well, come in. Rick's in the living room." The house smelled different. Cigarettes and something else: neglect. Maybe. The hardwood floors my father had refinished by hand were scuffed and dull. Family photos that once lined the hallway had been replaced with Rick's deer heads and fishing trophies. "Look who finally decided to grace us with her presence." Rick's voice boomed from the living room. He didn't get up from his recliner, my father's recliner, reupholstered in hideous camouflage fabric. "The prodigal daughter returns." Rick Carlton was exactly what you'd expect: mid-50s, beer gut, permanent sneer. He wore a stained t-shirt that proclaimed him world's best grandpa, though he had no grandchildren. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Rick," I acknowledged him with a nod. "That's it, Rick. No good to see you. No thanks for taking care of my mother." He took a swig from his beer. "Typical." Mom fluttered between us like a nervous bird. "Claire's tired from her flight. Let me show you to your room. Honey?" My room turned out to be a storage closet. Boxes labeled Rick's bowling trophies and hunting gear were stacked against the walls. A pull-out couch had been wedged between them. "Where's my bedroom?" I asked, though I already knew. "Oh, well, Rick needed an office. You haven't been home in so long. We didn't think—" She trailed off. "This is fine, isn't it? You're only staying a few nights." I thought of my apartment in Manhattan, my sanctuary with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. "I'll get a hotel." "Don't be ridiculous. Family stays with family. What would people think?" What would people think? My mother's eternal concern. "I need to use the bathroom," I said. Even that had changed. Rick's razors cluttered the sink. His prescription bottles lined the medicine cabinet: Percocet, Vicodin, Xanax, a winning combination. The shower curtain featured Confederate flags. In my childhood bathroom, in the house my father, who'd served 2 tours in Iraq, had bought with his veteran's loan. I locked the door and opened my phone, pulled up the secure folder. Everything was there: the original purchase agreement from 2009, my co-signing documents for the mortgage, the conditional transfer clause my mother had clearly never read carefully. Most importantly, the exit provision that required both parties' consent for any major changes to the property's ownership structure. My name was still on those papers, had been all along. Downstairs, I could hear Rick's voice getting louder. Ungrateful little, walks in here like she owns the place, hasn't contributed a dime. I smiled at my reflection in the mirror. If only he knew. The memorial service was tomorrow. I'd pay my respects to my grandfather, the man who'd taught me to read legal documents before I signed them, the man who'd said, "Claire, always keep copies, always know your rights. Never let anyone push you out of what's yours." I walked back downstairs. Rick had moved to the kitchen, helping himself to another beer. Mom was heating up something that looked like cafeteria food. "I'm going out," I announced. "Where?" Mom asked. "To see Grandma. She asked me to come by. At this hour, it's almost 7. She's expecting me." Rick snorted. "Figures. Always was the old lady's favorite. Probably hoping for an inheritance." I grabbed my keys. "I'll be back late. Don't wait up." "This is still my house," Rick called after me. "My rules: be back by 10 or find somewhere else to stay." I paused at the door, turned back to look at him. Really looked at him. This man who'd moved into my father's house, sat in my father's chair, slept in my father's bed. This man who thought he owned everything just because he'd married a widow desperate not to be alone. "Of course," I said quietly. "Your house, your rules." For now, the visit with Grandma lasted longer than expected. We sat in her kitchen, going through old photo albums and documents she'd kept just in case. By the time I returned to Maple Street, it was past 11. The house was dark except for the TV's blue glow from the living room. I used my old key, surprised it still worked, and stepped inside quietly. The smell hit me first: bourbon, stronger than before. Rick was passed out in the recliner, empty bottle on the side table. I moved toward the stairs, careful to avoid the creaky floorboard near the banister. Almost made it. "Where the hell have you been?" Rick wasn't asleep. He lurched from the chair, stumbling slightly. "I told you 10 o'clock. You trying to disrespect me in my own house?" I texted Mom. She knew I'd be late. "I don't give a damn what you told her. When I say 10, I mean 10. I kept my voice level. "I understand. It won't happen again." "Damn right it won't." He moved closer. Bourbon fumes overwhelming. "You think you're better than us, don't you? With your fancy job and your New York attitude." "I think I'm tired. The memorial is early tomorrow." "Don't you walk away from me!" His hand shot out, grabbing my wrist. "I'm talking to you." "Let go." "Or what?" "You'll run away again, leave your mother to wonder what she did wrong." His grip tightened. "She cried for months after you left. Months. And where were you?" "Building a career. Something you might not understand." The slap came fast, hard across my left cheek. Not a punch he was too drunk for accuracy, but enough to snap my head sideways. "Rick." My mother's voice from the top of the stairs. She'd been awake, listening, waiting. "Go back to bed, Lydia," he growled. She hesitated. Then I heard her bedroom door close. Of course. Rick released my wrist, satisfaction spreading across his flushed face. "You're nothing special, girl. Just another ungrateful brat who abandoned her family. This isn't your home anymore." I touched my cheek, already feeling it swell. "You're right. It's not." He blinked, surprised by my agreement. "I'll stay at a hotel tomorrow," I continued, "after the memorial." "Good. And don't come crawling back when you need something." I walked past him to the pull-out couch, pulled out my phone, and opened the camera. The lighting was perfect, his handprint still visible on my face. I took several photos, different angles. Then I opened my legal app and started a new incident report, time-stamped and detailed. Rick had shuffled back to his chair, already reaching for another beer from the mini-fridge he'd installed beside it. My father would have been appalled he'd built custom bookshelves in that exact spot. I texted my assistant, "Need you to contact Morrison and Associates first thing Monday. Initial consultation for property dispute with documentation of hostile environment." Then I texted my grandmother, "You were right. I did need to see it with my own eyes." Her response came immediately, despite the late hour. "Your grandfather's lawyer will be at the memorial. Jonathan Morrison. He's expecting you." I smiled in the dark. Of course she'd already arranged it. The morning came too soon. I dressed carefully, black suit, concealer for the bruise, my father's West Point pin on my lapel. Mom was in the kitchen, pretending everything was normal. "Coffee," she offered. "No, thank you." "Claire, about last night." "We should leave soon. Don't want to be late." Rick appeared in the doorway, looking worse for wear. "What's all the noise?" "Getting ready for Dad's memorial," Mom said softly. "Right. The old man's dead party." He grabbed orange juice from the fridge, added a generous splash of vodka. "Count me out. Football's on." Mom's face crumbled slightly. "But Rick, you said—" "I said I'd think about it. I thought about it. Not going." I watched my mother shrink into herself, becoming smaller with each word. This was her life now, her choice. "We should go, Mom." The drive to the funeral home was silent. I parked, but Mom didn't move. "He's not usually like that," she said finally. "How often does he hit you?" "He doesn't—" She stopped. "He's under a lot of stress. Work has been slow. And the bills?" "The bills for the house you own, the house Dad left to you." Her face went pale. "It's complicated." "Actually, it's not." I pulled up the property records on my phone. "Did you know the house was transferred to joint ownership with Rick last year?" We're married. It made sense." "Did you read what you signed?" "Rick handled all that." "Of course he did." "Did he also handle selling Dad's tools? His coin collection, my grandmother's jewelry that was supposed to come to me?" Tears slipped down her cheeks. "How did you—" "I pay attention, Mom, even from New York." "You don't understand. Being alone, it's—" "I understand perfectly. You traded everything Dad built for the promise of not eating dinner by yourself." I softened slightly. "But Mom, you're not alone. You never were. You have family, friends. You had choices." "Easy for you to say. You left." "I left because there was nothing here for me. Because you made it clear Rick's comfort mattered more than your daughter's presence." We sat in silence, through the windshield. I watched other families arriving for the memorial. Normal families, functional families, families where fathers didn't hit daughters who came home. "I should tell you," I said finally. "I'm meeting with Grandpa's lawyer after the service." Her head snapped up. "Why?" "To discuss my options regarding Dad's estate, specifically the house." "Claire, no, please, it's all we have." "It's all Rick has. You had a daughter. You had a family home full of memories. You had Dad's legacy. You chose Rick instead. You can't— Actually, I can— My name is still on several documents. Documents that give me more rights than you think." I opened the car door. "I won't make a scene at Grandpa's memorial. But things are going to change. He'll never agree to—" "He doesn't have to agree. That's the beautiful thing about legal documentation." I stepped out, then leaned back in. "Coming, or should I tell everyone you're not feeling well?" She followed me into the funeral home. Silent and shaken. Good. It was time she understood how it felt to have your world shifted without your consent. Jonathan Morrison found me during the reception, a distinguished man in his 60s who'd known my grandfather for 40 years. "Claire, your grandmother said you might need my services." I handed him my phone, showing him the photos from last night and the documents I'd collected. His expression darkened as he scrolled through. "How soon can you move on this?" I asked. "Monday morning, first thing. Though technically," he smiled slightly, "we could file an emergency protective order today, given the assault." "No, I want this done right. By the book. Irrefutable." "Understood. Your grandfather always said you were the smart one in the family." He handed back my phone. I'll have my assistant send you a secure link for the rest of the documents. As we talked, I caught sight of Mom across the room, clutching her purse like a life preserver. She knew, could see the wheels turning, the careful plans falling into place. Rick thought he'd won by driving me away. He was about to learn why that was his biggest mistake. After the memorial, I drove Mom home in silence. Rick's truck was gone off to his usual Saturday afternoon haunt, the VFW hall where he'd drink and complain about immigrants taking American jobs, despite having never served a day in his life. I followed Mom inside, heading straight for what used to be my room. Started pulling boxes away from the walls. "What are you doing?" Mom hovered in the doorway. "Looking for something." I found the box labeled Claire's Junk and opened it. Empty, of course. Where are my things? What things? My art portfolio, the camera Grandpa gave me, my high school yearbooks. Mom fidgeted with her wedding ring. Rick had a garage sale last spring. We needed the money for his truck repairs. I kept my voice steady. He sold my belongings. They were just sitting here collecting dust. They were mine. I stood, brushing dust from my pants. Did he sell Dad's medals too? Her silence was answer enough. I walked past her to my father's old study. Rick's office now. The built-in shelves Dad had crafted by hand were gone, replaced with cheap particle board units from Walmart. Rick's diplomas hung where Dad's service photos once were. Associate degree in business management from an online college. Forklift operator certification. Nothing wrong with honest work. But Rick wore these papers like combat ribbons he'd never earned. The desk, my grandfather's desk that Dad had restored, was scarred with drink rings and cigarette burns. "Don't touch anything," Mom warned. "He doesn't like people in his space." His space. I pulled out my phone, started photographing everything. The damage to the desk, the holes in the walls where Dad's shelves had been, the water stains on the ceiling from whatever hack job Rick had done to the upstairs plumbing. "Stop that. What are you doing?" "Documenting the deterioration of my father's property." "It's not your father's anymore. It's ours. Mine and Rick's." I opened the desk drawer. Financial papers, carelessly stuffed inside. Mortgage statements showing missed payments. Credit card bills and collections. A notice from the county about unpaid property taxes. "Mom, you're 3 months behind on the mortgage." She paled. "Rick said he was handling it. With what money is he even working?" "He's between jobs. The economy has been booming for skilled workers. What's his excuse?" I photographed every document. Then I found the deed transfer from last year. Mom's signature was shaky, probably signed after a few glasses of wine. Rick's was bold, triumphant. But there, in the fine print, was what I'd been looking for. The section Rick clearly hadn't read. Subject to existing liens and claims as recorded in County Records Book 447, page 281. That was my co-signing agreement. Still valid, still binding. "Claire, please, whatever you're thinking." "I'm thinking Dad would be horrified to see what's become of his house. I'm thinking you let a parasite convince you that family history could be sold at garage sales and love could be bought with joint ownership." I closed the drawer. "I'm thinking it's time someone reminded Rick that this house has a history he can't just erase." A truck door slammed outside. Rick was home early. "Don't say anything," Mom begged. "Please, just get through dinner and leave tomorrow." "I'm not staying for dinner. I have a hotel reservation." Rick stumbled in, already 3 sheets to the wind. Well, still here. Thought you'd run back to New York already." "Just collecting some things." His bloodshot eyes narrowed. "From my office. Get the hell out of there." I stepped into the hallway. "Of course. Your office, your house, your rules." "Damn straight." He pushed past me, checking his desk. "You touch anything." "Just admiring the renovations. Interesting choice. Removing Dad's built-ins." "Those old things termites? Had to go," he smirked. "Like everything else in this house that's past its prime." I glanced at my mother. She looked away. "Speaking of past its prime," I said conversationally, "how's the job search going?" His face darkened. "None of your business." It is when you're living off my mother's social security and dad's pension. Our money, what's hers is mine. That's how marriage works. He stepped closer, breath reeking. Not that you'd know anything about that. What are you now? 35. No husband, no kids, just a lonely career woman who'll die alone with her money. 34, and I'd rather die alone than live with someone who sells my dead father's medals for beer money. The admission hung in the air. Mom gasped. Rick's face went from red to purple. Those were mine to sell. Everything in this house is mine. Really everything. I pulled out my phone. Interesting perspective for someone who's been unemployed for 18 months now. I work. When Ware show me a pay stub from the last year. He lunged forward. Mom stepped between us. Stop it, both of you. Get her out, Rick snarled. Get her out of my house before you what? Hit me again in front of a witness this time. Mom's head snapped toward me. Again. Ask your husband about last night. Ask him why I needed concealer for Grandpa's memorial. Rick's hands clenched into fists. You lying little... I have photos, time-stamped, and a formal complaint ready to file. I looked him dead in the eye. Touch me again. Please, make my lawyer's job easier. He stood there, swaying slightly, calculating whether his rage was worth the risk. Finally, he stomped back to his recliner. Get out. Don't come back. Oh, I'll be back. I picked up my purse. With documentation you should have read more carefully. What's that supposed to mean? Ask Mom about the co-signing agreement from 2009. Ask her about the conditional transfer clause. Better yet, ask a lawyer. I headed for the door. You have about 72 hours before you'll need one. You can't do anything. This is my house. I turned back one last time. No, Rick, it's my father's house. You're just squatting in it. But don't worry, that's about to change. I left them there, Rick raging, Mom crying, the house that built me crumbling around them. Outside, I sat in my rental car and placed a call. Morrison, it's Claire. I want to move forward immediately. The assault charges. Everything. The fraud. The illegal transfer. The breach of conditional ownership. Everything. That could get expensive and ugly. I thought of my father's medals in some pawn shop. My grandmother's jewelry sold for Rick's bar tabs. My childhood memories dismissed as junk and scattered to yard sale vultures. I can afford expensive and ugly. I started the engine. They haven't seen anything yet. The hotel room was clean, quiet, mine. I spread the documents across the bed, building my case piece by piece. Mom had texted 6 times, alternating between pleas and accusations. I deleted them all. By midnight, I'd uploaded everything to Morrison's secure server. The original purchase agreement, the co-signing documents, the conditional transfer clause, the photos of Rick's assault, the financial records showing his systematic draining of Mom's assets. My phone rang. Unknown number. Local area code. You think you're smart, Rick's slurred voice. You think you can waltz in here and take what's mine. I think you should be discussing this with your attorney. I don't need a damn attorney. I need you to understand something. His voice dropped, menacing. This house is all we got. You take it. Your mother's on the street. My mother has family, options, choices. I kept my voice calm. What she doesn't have is a husband who respects her or her daughter's inheritance. Inheritance, you walked away. I left for college, for the military, for a career. That's not abandonment. That's growth. I stood, looking out at the lights of my hometown. But you wouldn't understand that. Come near this house again. I'll be there Monday morning, with the sheriff, with legal documents, with every right to enter my father's property. I smiled. Sleep tight. Rick, enjoy the recliner. It's got maybe 48 hours left in that spot. I hung up before he could respond. Then I blocked his number. Mom's number. Everyone except Morrison and my grandmother. Time to stop playing defense. Time to remind them both that the quiet girl who'd left for New York had learned more than just accounting. She'd learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't dramatic or violent. Sometimes it's just paperwork, properly filed. Sunday morning came with a clear head and a plan. I'd converted my hotel room into a war room laptop open. Documents sorted chronologically. Legal precedents bookmarked. My assistant in New York had worked overtime, pulling every record we could find. The discoveries kept mounting. Rick had taken out a home equity loan 2 years ago, forging Mom's signature. He'd sold mineral rights to the property that he didn't own. He'd even tried to use the house as collateral for a failed business venture, a bar that closed within 6 months. But the smoking gun was in the original papers from 2009. When I'd co-signed the mortgage after Dad died, helping Mom keep the house, we'd included a provision I'd insisted on at 19. Fresh from my first contract law class, the military service clause, if I was deployed or serving active duty, my interest in the property couldn't be altered without written consent. I'd served 4 years, never gave consent, never even knew Mom had tried to transfer the deed until this weekend. My phone buzzed. Jonathan Morrison. Claire, I've reviewed everything. You have grounds for immediate injunction, the illegal transfer, the forged signatures, the financial exploitation of your mother. Rick could face criminal charges. How soon can we move? I can file first thing tomorrow. But Claire, are you prepared for what this means? Your mother will be caught in the middle. I thought of her closing her bedroom door while Rick hit me. She chose her side. Fair enough. One more thing, I pulled Rick's financials. He owes over $40,000 in gambling debts. That home equity loan, most of it went to covering markers at the casino. Of course it did. All the more reason to act fast, before he drains anything else. After the call, I opened my laptop and began typing. Not legal documents, those were Morrison's domain. This was different. An email to specific family members, the ones who mattered, Grandma's siblings, Dad's army buddies, the neighbors who'd watched me grow up. Subject: the truth about Rick Carlton. I laid it out simply, factually. The assault, the theft of family heirlooms, the financial abuse, the degradation of my father's legacy. I attached photos, the bruise on my face, the destroyed built-ins, the garage sale listings for Dad's medals I'd found cached online. Send. Within an hour, my phone exploded. Dad's best friend, Tom, still lived 2 streets over. Claire, honey, why didn't you say something sooner? We had no idea. Mom was good at keeping secrets. Your dad would be rolling in his grave. You need backup when you go over there. I'll have the sheriff, but thank you. By afternoon, word had spread. Mom's sister called from Florida, horrified. Dad's old squad leader promised to make some calls, see if the medals could be traced. The network of people who'd loved my father, who'd been pushed away by Rick's territorial behavior, suddenly reactivated. That evening, I sat in my hotel room finalizing strategies with Morrison when a knock came at the door. I checked the peephole. Mrs. Patterson, our former next-door neighbor. Claire, dear. She held a plate of cookies, just like when I was young. I heard you were in town. I invited her in. She sat on the edge of the bed, looking at my document fortress. I should have said something, she began. When I saw Rick selling your father's tools, your grandmother's china, but your mother begged me not to interfere. It wasn't your responsibility. Perhaps not, but I have something that might help. She pulled an envelope from her purse. Photos, from the garage sales. I thought, someone should document what was being lost. I opened the envelope. There they were. Dad's purple heart on a folding table marked $50. His tool chest, handmade by my grandfather, sitting in the driveway. My childhood paintings stacked like garbage. He told buyers they were from storage unit auctions. Mrs. Patterson continued, said the original owners had abandoned everything. I knew better, but thank you for this. I carefully placed the photos with my evidence. This helps more than you know. She stood to leave, then paused. Your mother came by last night, after you left. She was upset. I imagine so. She asked if I thought she'd made a mistake. marrying Rick. What did you tell her? Mrs. Patterson's expression hardened. I told her the mistake was letting him erase her first family for the comfort of not being alone. I told her Claire Matheson didn't raise a daughter who'd let someone steal her legacy without a fight. After she left, I sat in the gathering dusk, surrounded by evidence of Rick's systematic destruction. Tomorrow would begin the legal dismantling of his paper kingdom, but tonight I had one more task. I opened a new document and began typing. Property Recovery and Restoration Plan, 1247 Maple Street. Phase 1. Legal injunction to freeze all property transfers. Phase 2. Criminal complaint for fraud and forgery. Phase 3. Restoration of original ownership with protective provisions. Phase 4. Complete property restoration to David Matheson's specifications. At the bottom, I added a note, budget whatever it takes, time frame immediate. My phone rang, unknown number again. This time, I answered. You've turned the whole town against us. Mom's voice, shrill with panic. People are calling, texting. How could you? I told the truth. If that turned people against you, what does that say? Rick is furious. He's talking about suing you for defamation. Tell him to get in line. I'll be suing him for fraud first. Claire, please, we can work this out. Come to dinner. We'll talk like adults. Like we talked Friday night, when he hit me and you pretended not to see. Silence. Then, he was drunk. He didn't mean. He meant it, just like he meant to sell Dad's medals, just like he meant to forge your signature on loan documents. I let that sink in. Oh, you didn't know about the forgery. Check the home equity loan from 2022. Your signature looks nothing like your actual handwriting. That's impossible. Check for yourself, or don't. Morrison will subpoena the documents anyway. Why are you doing this? Because someone has to. Because Dad's memory deserves better. Because you deserve better, even if you can't see it. Rick is my husband. Rick is a parasite who saw a lonely widow with a paid-off house and a pension. He's not a husband. He's an opportunist who got lucky. She hung up on me. Progress, in a way. At least she was angry instead of making excuses. I spent the rest of the evening on the phone with contractors, getting estimates for restoration work. The built-ins could be recreated from photos. The hardwood floors could be refinished. The house could be saved. The family that had lived in it was another matter. But that wasn't my problem to solve. My job was simple: reclaim what was mine, restore what was destroyed, and ensure Rick Carlton learned exactly what happened when you tried to erase a military family's legacy. He thought he'd won by driving me away. Tomorrow, he'd learn he'd simply given me room to build up speed. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp clarity that promised change. I met Morrison at his office at 7:30 a.m., dressed in my sharpest suit, the one I wore for hostile takeover meetings in Manhattan. Ready, he asked, sliding the filed documents across his desk. I've been ready since I was 19 and watched Mom cry over bills while Dad's life insurance went to keep our house. Morrison smiled. Your grandfather would be proud. He always said you had steel in your spine. By 8:45 we sat in the courthouse, waiting for Judge Harrison to review our emergency injunction. Morrison had fast-tracked everything, calling in favors from 30 years of practice. Miss Matheson, Judge Harrison peered over his reading glasses. These are serious allegations: fraud, forgery, elder financial abuse. Every claim is documented, Your Honor. Morrison handed over our evidence binder. The defendant systematically liquidated assets belonging to the estate, forged signatures on loan documents, and physically assaulted my client when she attempted to retrieve personal property. The judge flipped through the photos: my bruised face, the forged signatures, the bank statements showing Rick's casino withdrawals using Mom's accounts. Injunction granted. All property transfers are frozen pending full review. Mr. Carlton is prohibited from selling, removing, or destroying any items from the residence. He looked at me. Miss Matheson, you're granted immediate access to the property to secure and document all remaining assets. Your Honor, Morrison added, we're also filing criminal charges. The district attorney is expecting our documentation this afternoon. Noted. Sheriff's Department will be notified to provide escort if needed. Judge Harrison signed the order. Good luck. Miss Matheson. We drove to the sheriff's office next. Sheriff Williams, who'd known my father, read the injunction carefully. Rick's not going to take this well, he warned. That's why we need escort, Morrison replied. You'll have it, Deputy Chen. He caught himself. Deputy Martinez will accompany you when... Now, I said, before Rick has time to destroy anything else. The drive to Maple Street felt different with a sheriff's cruiser behind us. Neighbors came out to watch. Mrs. Patterson gave me a small wave from her garden. Rick's truck was in the driveway. Perfect. Deputy Martinez knocked. I heard scrambling inside, muffled arguing. Finally, Mom opened the door, eyes red and puffy. Ma'am, Martinez showed his badge. We have a court order requiring access to the property. Rick appeared behind her, face purple with rage. Get off my property. Sir, I need you to step back. Martinez moved between us. Miss Matheson has legal right to enter. The hell she does. Morrison handed Rick the injunction. Page 3 details the frozen assets. Page 5 lists the criminal charges being filed. You'll want to contact an attorney. I walked past them into the house, Martinez following, started in the living room, photographing everything. Rick shadowed us, spitting venom. You think you're smart. You think you can just take everything. I'm not taking anything, I replied, opening the closet where Dad's military footlocker used to sit. Empty. I'm documenting what you already took. That junk sold it years ago. Got good money, too. Martinez stepped forward. Sir, you might want to stop talking. Anything you say. I know my rights, Rick snarled. This is my house, my property. That footlocker was mine to sell. Actually, I pulled out my phone, showing a photo. That footlocker belonged to Sergeant First Class David Matheson. His will specifically left it to me. You just confessed to stealing and selling stolen property. Rick's face cycled through several shades of red. Your mother agreed. My mother didn't own it to agree. I moved systematically through the house, Martinez keeping Rick at bay. In the basement, I found boxes labeled Claire's room empty, in the garage. The pegboard where Dad had organized his tools bare. But in Rick's office, locked in a filing cabinet he'd thought was secure, I found receipts, pawn shop slips, consignment records, a paper trail of every family heirloom he'd sold. He'd kept records for tax purposes, never imagining they'd become evidence against him. Jackpot, Morrison murmured, photographing each receipt. Those are private, Rick lunged forward. Martinez caught him. Sir, I need you to calm down or I'll have to restrain you. In my own house. This house, I said quietly, is subject to legal review. Your ownership is now in question. That's when Rick snapped. You little bitch. You abandoned this family. You left your mother alone. I stepped up. I took care of her. You drained her accounts. You sold her memories. You isolated her from family. I stayed calm, knowing Martinez's body cam was recording. You're not a caretaker. You're a predator. He struggled against Martinez's grip. Get out. Get out. Sir, you're under arrest for assault. Martinez efficiently cuffed him as Rick erupted in profanity. You have the right to remain silent. Mom stood frozen in the doorway, watching her husband being led away. Claire, how could you... How could I not? I pulled out the forged loan documents. Did you know he's been signing your name taking loans against the house? She sank into a chair, my grandmother's chair that had somehow survived Rick's purge. No. The house is 3 months behind on mortgage payments. The property taxes are overdue. Where did you think the money was going? He said he was investing for our future. In what poker chips? Morrison stepped forward. Mrs. Carlton, you should know that as a victim of financial fraud, you have options. The criminal charges against your husband don't have to include you, if you cooperate. She looked between us, lost. I don't understand any of this. I sat across from her. Rick has been stealing from you, from us, from Dad's memory. He's taken out loans you didn't authorize, sold property that wasn't his, and put this house, Dad's house, at risk of foreclosure. But he loves me. He loves what you had. There's a difference. Tears rolled down her cheeks. What am I supposed to do now? First, you get a lawyer, not Rick's buddy from the bar, a real lawyer. Second, you separate your finances immediately. Third, I hesitated, then pulled out a folder. You sign this. What is it? Paperwork to restore the house to its original ownership structure, with protections to prevent this from happening again. I set it in front of her. It gives you lifetime residency rights, but prevents anyone, including future husbands, from leveraging it for loans or selling it without court approval. You're taking my house. I'm saving Dad's house. There's a difference. She stared at the papers. And if I don't sign, then Morrison files the full lawsuit, criminal and civil charges. The house goes into foreclosure while we fight in court. You lose everything anyway, just more publicly. You'd do that to your own mother. You did it to yourself the day you let Rick sell my father's Purple Heart. That broke something in her. She crumpled, sobbing. I felt no sympathy. She'd stood by while Rick dismantled our family legacy. Piece by piece, she'd chosen comfort over conscience. Where will Rick go? Jail, initially, then wherever men go when their meal tickets realize they're parasites. I stood. You have 48 hours to decide. Sign the papers, or we go to trial. I left her there, crying in my grandmother's chair, and went to the garage, in the corner, covered by a tarp. I found the one thing Rick hadn't sold, Dad's workbench, too heavy to move easily, too built in to remove without destroying it. I ran my hand over the scarred wood, remembering Dad teaching me to use a level, to measure twice and cut once, to build things that last. I'm fixing it, Dad, I whispered. All of it. Morrison appeared in the doorway. Rick's been booked. Assault, fraud, forgery, bail hearing tomorrow. Good. What's next? We file the civil suit, demand full accounting of all sold assets, freeze any remaining accounts. He paused. Your mother. She'll sign. She has no choice. This is hard, what you're doing, but necessary. I thought of my apartment in New York, my simple life there. I know what everyone will say, that I'm the cold daughter who destroyed her mother's marriage, the villain in their small-town drama. And what will you say? I looked around the empty garage, once filled with tools and dreams and a father's love. That I'm the daughter who came home. Tuesday morning brought Rick's counterattack. I was reviewing contractor bids in my hotel room when Morrison called. He's hired Bradley Simmons, Morrison said. Local attorney, known for aggressive tactics. Any good? Good enough to be annoying. He's already called 3 times this morning, demanding we drop all charges. Says you're conducting a vindictive campaign against a loving stepfather. I laughed. Loving he sold my dead father's medals. About that Tom Rodriguez called, your dad's army buddy. He traced the Purple Heart to a pawn shop in Columbus, bought it back. He's driving down today to return it. My throat tightened. How much did he pay? He won't say. Just said some things aren't about money. By noon, Rick was out on bail. His first stop was Mom's workplace, the elementary school where she'd been a secretary for 15 years. I heard about it from the principal, Mrs. Davies, who called me directly. Claire, I'm concerned. Rick showed up during lunch, making a scene, yelling about ungrateful daughters and stolen property. I had to have security escort him out. I'm sorry you got dragged into this. Don't apologize. Your mother needs help, whether she admits it or not. I've watched her fade these past 3 years. Rick's not good for her. Did she leave with him? No, she's still here, hiding in my office. She asked me to call you. I found Mom in the principal's office, looking smaller than ever. Her coworkers had witnessed Rick's meltdown, saw the man behind the charm. The mask was finally off. He's never done that before, she said quietly. Embarrassed me at work. He's desperate. Desperate people do desperate things. His lawyer says you're lying, that the signatures aren't forged, that you abandoned any claim to the house when you left for college. His lawyer is wrong. I sat beside her. Mom, I need you to look at these. I spread out the loan documents, put her genuine signature next to the forged ones. Even she could see the difference. I didn't sign these, she whispered. I know. He told me we needed the money for repairs, for medical bills. I gave him my PIN, told him to handle it. She studied the withdrawal records. $40,000. Where did it go? Golden Nugget Casino, Riverside Racetrack, various sports betting sites. I showed her Rick's credit report Morrison had subpoenaed. He owes money to some very unfriendly people. Oh, God, she covered her mouth. He said he'd stopped gambling. When did he ever start? Before we met, his first wife left him over it, but he swore he was done, that I'd saved him. She laughed bitterly. I guess I was just a new line of credit. Sign the papers, Mom. Protect what's left. She was reaching for the pen when the door burst open. Rick stood there, wild-eyed, reeking of bourbon at 2 p.m. Don't you sign anything. He pointed at me. She's trying to steal everything we built. You built nothing. I stood, putting myself between them. You demolished. You sold. You stole. I maintained that house, I improved it. You destroyed Dad's handiwork and replaced it with particle board. You turned a family home into a flophouse. Mrs. Davies appeared with security. Mr. Carlton, you need to leave. Now. I'm talking to my wife. Your wife is my employee, and this is my school. Leave, or I call the police. Rick's face twisted. This is all your fault, he snarled at me. You turned everyone against me. Well, I've got news for you, princess. Your daddy isn't the saint you think he was. What's that supposed to mean? Ask your mother about 2008. Ask her why he was really deployed so often, he smirked. Better yet, ask her about Sergeant Katie Williams. Mom went white. Rick, don't. Oh, now you want to protect his memory? Where was that protection when your daughter was destroying our life?